Hey guys, this is just a quick showcase video I made for this Iron Kong I painted for a competition in the Zoid fans community on Facebook. I decided to do this one a bit differently and just kind of talk off the cuff about why I did what I did, so this is going to be more about, I guess, what you'd call artistic choices than painting techniques. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. Let me know what you think anyway, and let's get started.
Robo Shop.
Alright, so first of all, the question is why Star Wars, right? As I mentioned in the intro, this build was for a competition, and the way I was thinking about it early on was just, I want to play to my strengths, so I wanted to paint it in a light color so that the weathering would show up properly, basically, because if you paint something very dark colors, it's really difficult to get weathering to show up, especially things like, the rust that you can see here and here, or the also, just anything black won't show up, so it had to be a light color. And I still had this mix of 4 parts Tamiya white to 1 part Tamiya deck tan that I had originally put together for a Perfect Rate Millennium Falcon, based on something that model making guru Fox from the Model Making Guru channel talked about in a video series. Still my favorite modeling channel in all of YouTube, by the way, and you should head on over there and subscribe right now. So I had this paint mix still, and I decided, hey, that's a nice color and it'll definitely help with the weathering showing up. And since that was a paint mix I created for a Star Wars build, it wasn't really much of a jump to then decide, hey, let's just do the whole thing Star Wars themed. So to start with, and this is really the only thing that's new here, the pre-shading was done differently than what I usually do. You can see here that it's fairly intense, and it's definitely showing up everywhere, despite all of the weathering and everything else that I've done on top of it. And really, I think the reason for that is I used Steinway's gray primer, or more specifically Ultimate Modeling Primer, but that's the same product, right? And then I did the pre-shading with black, and then the white and deck tan mix on top of that. And what that did was it allowed me to do the pre-shading really intense, just using black, without the usual problem that you have when you do that on top of a white primer, where you get a ton of speckling. So it was just, honestly, it's just easier to do, and you also have some leeway when you apply the white, where it's not too bright immediately, and you can just sort of slowly feel your way up to where you want the color to be, and the pre-shading is still going to show up. And then of course the next big thing I had to do to make this look like a Star Wars build was all these blue and red panels, which you can see here, and also on the back, if you look here, this one's blue, I kept this one white. The head has a red and a blue one on either side. The ones on the feet here are 2 different colors. I wanted this to be asymmetrical because this is done as a Rebel build. And the cool thing about the Rebel ships in the Star Wars movies is this lack of symmetry. That's really what gives them that specific aesthetic, and so I had to do it that way. All of this, of course, involves, as you can see here, these are, if you know anything about this kit, these are all very big parts, and so this was all done with masking tape, more masking than I've probably ever done in a build before, but I mean, it had to be done. This is what it needed for it to look like a Star Wars vehicle, right? The worst part, as far as the masking goes, of course, was the missile launcher on the back here. This is basically all one solid piece, and I had to mask off the missiles from the launcher part that they attached to, for them to really look like separate missiles. But like with everything else, really not much of a choice there. It just had to happen. So that's sort of the basics of the armor, and honestly, like the weathering, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. I did just all the usual, chipping with white and dryad bark, and then a bunch of streaking with oil paints, and of course, a dot filter. Just, what you've seen me do a couple of times before. The undercarriage The undercarriage also is, you know, it's basically done like a Gundam inner frame, because that's pretty much what it is. The base color is metal color, Vallejo metal color, gunmetal. Sorry guys, I can't remember anything today. And then I hand painted a bunch of detail with Citadel colors. I think this is Stormhost silver, and this is definitely Balthazar gold. And that was pretty much it for the undercarriage. I was kind of hoping that I could get some red detail in there as well, but then there wasn't really anything that would lend itself to it. I also painted a bunch of detail on the missile launcher here on the shoulder, which hopefully you're looking at a picture as I'm telling you this, because I don't really want to open that hatch anymore. And then the final big thing that I did here is, of course, the modifications to the shoulder cannon, because if you know the Iron Kong, then you know it has a missile launcher on the back with this giant blocky looking thing here that stores a bunch of extra missiles because it's designed as a toy. And so I've never liked the way that looked, mostly because I'm just used to, you know, I'm used to the original European version's appearance, and it doesn't have that big missile cartridge. So I sawed that off and I glued a bunch of greebles on top there to close up the hole. These tubes you're seeing here are coil springs, and they're attached with aluminum foil actually that I bent and super glued there, like this thing right here. And then in order to close the hole on the front, I took this greebly bit that you can't see properly. Let me hold up the camera. I took this greebly bit here and just painted it with clear green so that it would look like a clear part, and now, well, now it's a beam cannon, it's not a missile launcher anymore. And yeah, that's really, unless I was to go into detail about the weathering for 25 minutes, that's everything I did. You can see also that there's some vents here on the armor pieces that I painted with gunmetal after applying the MAC coat so that they would look shiny like the inner frame pieces. And then just didn't top coat them afterwards to keep them shiny. I've done that on Gunpla builds a bunch of times before. And of course, one of the more important sort of finishing touches was all these Star Wars themed decals that you can see in a bunch of places here. This as well. This is just a custom made decal sheet that I found on eBay that, as far as I know, is actually intended for X-Wing pilot helmets. And I kind of placed these the way that the Republic or Empire insignia, depending on which version of the Iron Kong you have, would have been placed on the original version, when it's actually a Zoid and not a weird mutated Star Wars vehicle. Also, hopefully you're looking at a picture of the inside of the cockpit right now. I also painted the pilots to look like X-Wing pilots, which is really not that difficult because they're basically already designed like them anyway. As you can see here, all you have to do is paint them orange and white, and then you have X-Wing pilots. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to tell you about this build at this point. I'm also going to show you some pictures now, and I hope you enjoyed this little run through.